Back from a little off-season break, man. Will
Yeah.
Z is back with us.
It's good to be back. It's good to dive into numbers again. I have my giant spreadsheet that's ready to go.
Oh
All seems
man,
right in the world.
the Wakanda board is ready to go.
Yeah,
He's just
yeah.
Mhm.
moving it around.
I love it. WillZstats.com. The article is up. Top 5 free agent targets or trade targets, excuse me,
Mhm.
realistic options for the Sacramento Kings. Let's get it over with, man, because you created a list of 5. He actually gave me a warning. He was like, hey, number 5.
Yep.
Who is it?
Zach LaVine. So
Huh?
I know
I ain't
he's.
mad at that. I ain't mad
I
at
know
it.
that's what Damien said. And he's like, "Well, KC will be happy." It's like, "Oh, that's good." But with Levine, it's someone who the Kings need offense, and he provides offense. And it's hard. The contract is a large contract. We all know that. But it's what makes Keon being on the like $3 million deal so important is because if you pair Keon and Levine together, then you're talking about 46 million between two high caliber role players, like a starter, maybe 2 starters, a starter and a key bench player. Like just take those averages and don't worry about the contract because they're both 3 years and it makes it a good kind of way to invest in that. Hard part is injuries. I can't talk around that. Like it's a risk, but everyone's a risk. But in terms of what you're getting on the court, in terms of offense, like he can score from everywhere. I put graphics out for all these players that has all their minutes, points, rebounds, their shooting splits by area, some defensive stats, and a key stat on the bottom. So go check that out if you haven't seen it. I'll probably sprinkle them into social media as well. But he is just I think is still a bucket. He works well in the handoff play type, and the Kings need buckets, which we saw at the end of last season. And he also 5.2 rebounds, 3.9 assists. That's something that you're not getting from other players. We have Fox and Monk who can create for others, and if you add in Levine to that, especially if they're able to keep Monk, that would give you 3 playmakers and 3 players who can create off the dribble.
Yeah.
Let me ask you both a question real quick, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
If in whatever world this winds up happening, and Monty's reading Will's article and go, God damn, Will's right. I'm gonna go get Zach. I've been listening to Kenny Caraway. He's right.
Should.
Mike Brown can never bring up the term defense again, right? He can never talk about this team doing something defensively.
It depends. It depends.
Because then it'll just feel like a shot at Monty.
Well, but it also depends. I've said this a number of different times. People assume that player Y is gonna come here and be the same player that they've been, or is gonna say, "No, sorry, coach, I just don't play defense." You know what I mean? As opposed to, maybe he buys into that. Maybe he takes that on as a role or whatever. And not to be like locked down, like he's not going to be Bruce Bowen or Tony Allen, but gives the adequate effort that could help the team out. He might do that. Any of these guys that come up here might do that.
Yeah, I think he could at least be an average defender. I don't think he's terrible on defense. The numbers say he's pretty much average. He gets 1.6 deflections per games, which Mike Brown and the Kings love. Like, I think that he can hold his own well enough where his offense will make up for his lack of defensive skills, especially if you can figure out some sort of lineup with him, Keon, and Keegan. Then you have other plus defenders in there, even Fox. Like you have plus defenders where you're not asking Levine to go guard Steph or whoever the top offensive player on the other team is.
We can tell him, we'll protect you.
Jason Kidd, he's just like, hey,
we'll protect
bigger.
I was going to say the other thing about Zach LaVine real quick is, people talk about the money and the contract. No, and I understand that. It's not like he's got 15 years left on his deal. He's got 3. Like, the Kings will be fine if they have Zach LaVine for 3 more years.
Bigger concern for both of you, the injury issue or the contract issue?
Injuries
for me too.
Yeah.
Okay. That's number 5 on Will Z's realistic trade target list for the Sacramento Kings. William, who's number 4?
Jeremy Grant. He was a top free agent option for last year. I still don't know what Portland is doing. It just doesn't feel
Need to
like
do
he's
that.
going to live out. Yeah, like he's going to live out his contract there. Looking in his contract, it's much more palatable now. He's making 29 million next year, and that goes up a few million each year. Which, when you see these contracts coming out now, like 29 doesn't feel that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And he can just shoot the heck out of the ball. He hit KCO like this, wide open 3-point percentage, 50% last year.
Yeah.
And the great thing about him coming to the Kings is those number of wide open looks would go up. I think he was at like 1.4 wide open threes per game with Portland. That's pretty low in terms of volume. So throw him in a better offense with players like Fox and Sabonis, and I think his good looks will go up. And again, his 1.7 deflections, I think he's active on defense. I think he'd probably be a defensive upgrade over Harrison Barnes at this point. And much like Levine, he's not going to help you necessarily on defense in terms of putting him on. I think Keegan would still take that main assignment in terms of the forwards, but he's not going to hurt you on defense, I think. And just someone who can go score on nights where you need another scorer. He doesn't give you as many other things. 3.5 rebounds, 2.8 assists last season. Those aren't as high as you'd like to see from a player of his caliber. But again, if he's hitting that wide open shot, that's great. He gets to the free throw line a ton, 5.8 free throw attempts last season at an 81.7% clip. The Kings were, as everyone remembers, I'm sure, last in the league in terms of free throw percentage. So he would make that number go up based on his volume and free throw percentage too.
So I like Jeremy Grant. I like the thought of having him on the team. I think he's a good fit for what they're trying to do. I'll just ask both of you guys this: why? What would Portland be looking for that the Kings have?
And I think it goes back to Will's first statement when he mentioned Jeremy Grant. We're still not quite sure what Portland is doing. Like, are they building, or like what? Like, are they waiting for your boy to develop, like, and become the star that I think he's shown that he can be? And talking, of course, about Shaedon Sharpe. Do they see Collins as a part of his build, right? Because if you think I feel like this really boils down to Shaedon Sharpe and what you think of him. Like, is he your star? And if the answer is yes, it's like, okay, then you start working with everyone else on this roster and you go, is this player building Shaedon to be that star? Is John Collins building Shaedon Sharpe to be that star? And in the process, how good are we? I do think there is a question at the head coaching position right now. And I don't think you can answer that question, though, until you know exactly what you're doing. And that, in turn, answers your question. Do you want guys to surround Shaedon Sharpe with if John Collins isn't the guy? Are you still rebuilding? Because if you are rebuilding, then you want draft picks, you want you want cap relief, you want players on expiring contracts, and you're thinking about, and this is the tough part about being an NBA player. That contract on the way for Shaedon is really, really nice. The Blazers might not even be thinking about anything until they get to Shaedon's second contract, which is not terribly far away, but still you're still tearing. Like, you're tearing things down in the process. And I think until you have a clear view of what Portland's doing, to Will's original question, I can't answer that. But I feel like if they're in the rebuilding process still, then they want cap relief and draft picks.
That's how I feel too. That's why I think he's a realistic option in terms of someone you could probably go get with the Kings assets that they have compared to like the top names that are out there.
If I was Portland, I would be looking for cap relief in different assets.
Do you have Portland still in the process of like tearing it apart?
They should be. It feels like they are. If I was them, I would be looking at Scoot, Shaedon, DeAndre Ayton, and then everybody else could go. And this year, we may stink again. Like, we may be pretty bad again. But
there's a may about it.
I'm gonna get a top 5 pick. I'm gonna have money to spend, and we'll start our I don't want to say ascension, but trying to make an ascension back towards the playoffs. We'll start that next offseason. That'd be my strategy for them, because I don't know what you're doing or what you think you're doing this year. It's like, what is Jeremy Grant there for? You're not going to win. You're not. That's the way I would be thinking.
Yeah, Jeremy. I said John Collins. Sorry, Jeremy Grant. Yeah. Okay. Will, on the Will Z meter, how much do you like the Jeremy Grant trade proposal?
Like out of 1 to 10, I think I like it like a 7.5.
Wow, that was higher than I thought. All
Yeah,
right.
I really like his shooting and his scoring, like, and the length. Those three things, his ability to shoot with the like giant wingspan, is just something the Kings need.
Number 3 on the Will Z trade target list is
Good old Kyle Kuzma. He always has to show up on these lists. And I put the opening sentence, like, it feels like he's on this list by default. I still don't know if I like it, but everything makes sense when you look at both.
really.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
like the way you're talking about
Wow.
Kuz, Will Z.
I know. I don't know if he is a versatile enough scorer. Like, so he shoots 76.4% in the restricted area, which is 8th highest in the NBA among all players with at least 100 attempts in there. But he doesn't shoot well in the floater area, 39.9%, 34.5% in mid-range. And those are shots that he's probably going to take because he likes to shoot. And I still have questions of, can he play in the system and do what needs to be done for the team? I think that's what holds me back. I think that's what holds a lot of Kings fans back. And I don't know. I don't know how he would do in a non-volume scoring role, which I don't think is a good fit for him on this Kings roster. But if you look at his contract, where the Wizards are at, the assets that it would take to get him, it makes sense that he is someone who the Kings can go and get, and just kind of fits right in. James talks about this all the time with this contract. He fits right in line with what they need.
I'm a big Kuzma guy. I think he's
Little surprised he's at 3.
no, I believe in the guy. I believe in what he could bring to this team. Dare I say, I would have him number 1 on my list. I think
Well,
Kuzma, when you talk about the contract, when you talk about his ability to score, his ability to rebound, I think, all things considered, I think that would probably, me personally, I think that would be the best option. He'd be a 9.5 out of 10 on my Will Z meter.
I didn't think it'd be the KC meter, but it's okay. We'll see. He has him at 3. You say you'd have him at 1, or at least closer to 1. Well, let's find out who's at 2.
Number 2, Bobby Portis. I don't know if he's necessarily available. It seems like there's been murmurings, at least among fans, Milwaukee fans. He has 1 year and a player option left on his deal, $12.5 million. He seems like a player that the Kings desperately need in terms of his attitude on the court, where he will just come in, he'll do the dirty work, he'll make his presence known, and all of his stats are better than I thought they were. 13.8 points, 7.4 rebounds. He can rebound the heck out of the ball. So imagine if you're going from Harrison Barnes was at 3 rebounds per game, jump that to 7.4 from Portis, and pair that with Keegan and Sabonis. They'd become a great rebounding front court all around. He can score pretty much from everywhere. He and his wide open threes at a 46.1% clip, 1.6 deflections. He just kind of does all the little things that I think they may not jump off the page, but the Kings need someone like that. It's very reminiscent to me of what Keon does for them. He does all the little things, and that really helped them when he got into the starting lineup. So someone who isn't really a star acquisition, but I think would have a big impact if he got into a trade.
I like Bobby Portis.
Mhm.
I like him as a ball player. I like what he would bring to the table. Um,
Perfect for all those people who want dogs.
he's
Mhm.
definitely a dog.
Yep.
Definitely a dog. But I like what he would bring to this team. I don't know if he's a starter. He may
Mhm.
be a guy that you bring off the bench. Um, but I mean, because
Walk me through that.
that was his role in Milwaukee. Now, part of that was Brooke Lopez being there, and all of that actually was Brooke Lopez being there and Giannis being there. Um, but if you want to start him at the 4, then I'm all for that. I still feel like the Kings are hung up on this idea that Keegan is a 4 or
Mm.
should be the 4.
Mhm.
I I kind of lean towards that.
Mhm.
I'd want a guy that can play the 3 that I'm trading for
Mhm.
or something like that, because I think Keegan at his best is that 4, that stretch 4 type guy, and he has the versatility to guard, perimeter guys. But at his core, as we use it, he'd be a 4-3 as opposed to a 3-4.
Mhm.
And Bobby, if that's the case, then Bobby might be coming off the bench in that scenario. And to get Bobby Portis, you may have to give up a guy like Trey Lyles.
Mhm.
So he would just kind of slide
Slide
into
into
his
that.
role.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. The number 1 trade target on
So
Will
I had
Z's
fun with this
list.
one. I called them realistic options. This one's probably toes that line. But Lauri Markkanen, again, I don't know what the Jazz are doing, but Lauri Markkanen, he has been my dream target to just slide into this roster ever since there's been kind of questions of what Utah would do. He, again, can shoot the heck out of the ball. He can score everywhere. All these players can score all around the court. So Markkanen, just looking at his stats, 33 minutes, 23.2 points, 8.2 rebounds, 2 assists, 0.9 steals, 0.5 blocks, 39.9% from 3, 43.4% from the corners, shoots well above the break too at 39.2%. Cut play type, which the Kings would work well with Sabonis off of, 88.4th percentile. So very good in that style of play. He knows how to play with another big, playing with Walker Kessler. I just think that him, Sabonis, and Keegan, if you can get him without giving up Keegan, he's the player that I would give a lot of draft picks towards. Like, we all know that the Jazz, they want draft picks, I think. And I would throw this year's draft pick, all the futures. It's a risk because he has 1 year left. If you can get some sort of agreement on an extension, I don't know, a little behind the scenes talk. I don't know. But it's, I think, the
Look at
riskiest
Will
move.
suggesting a wink deal. Wow, I would never have expected that
I
from Will.
know. Who am I? Um, I just really want to see him and Sabonis together. I think that it would, with his 3-point shooting, would allow the Kings to do. We see the Celtics are just thriving with that 5-out offense. Sabonis is already pulled out from the at the top of the key running plays, and having someone like Markkanen out there who can shoot. He has shot 8 threes per game last year and made them at that 39.9% clip. The only 3 players who attempted more per game and shot at a better percentage: CJ McCollum, Dante DiVincenzo, and Steph Curry. So he's a high volume 3-point specialist at 7 foot. Like, that's something that you're not going to see very often, which is why I would give up a lot for Markkanen.
So you talked about the one thing that kind of concerns you, and that's the 1 year left on the contract. That um, is that obviously he's your number 1 candidate, but you're willing to risk the fact that he might walk, even if you, like, say you can't get the wink. Maybe he's like, I don't want to make that call yet. I want to see what's out there potentially. You still making that move, or do you need that
Assurance.
assurance? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I think
he's
I
gonna
would
stay.
make it anticipating that would be taken into account of what it would take to get him. If he it's the classic like 4 first round picks and 3 pick swaps, I don't think I would do that. But generally we see players with less years on their contract, They get traded for a little less. So if that's kind of taken into account, then I would do it. It'd be tough. It's hard because if they trade for him, even if they make the playoffs and then he walks, like that's tough. But I don't know. I'm just trying to think of the biggest possible impact players. And sometimes it feels like you gotta, when a player like him is available, take the risk. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I understand it.
Yeah, I'm not big into risk. Can't lie. I'm a pretty boring guy.
I understand.
Why I don't like the Brandon Ingram conversation.
Well, Brandon Ingram didn't even make the list.
Well, there was a reason for that. Will, you want to explain?
I think with Ingram, I think the Kings would get outbid by a ton of different teams, which may be the case for Markkanen too.
Exactly the same.
I know.
It's exactly the same.
That's why it's like he really does toe the line of
That's
realistic
right.
and not.
That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. You got a little crush. Ain't nothing wrong with it.
That's true.
It's okay. That's all right. It's all right. But Markkanen is the same reason I hate the Brandon Ingram idea.
Yeah.
I can't make it work in my head.
And I think the difference too to me, Markkanen and Ingram is I'm fully comfortable throwing a ton of money at Markkanen.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he comes over, I don't know if I'm as comfortable with that with Ingram, just with injuries, and I just like Markkanen's game better. I think with this roster, because he's a better 3-point shooter than Ingram, and I think he can still score on par with him. But yeah, I think I'd rather have Markkanen going forward than Ingram, which is why I bumped him down to realistic instead of not realistic.
How realistic do you think a move is at all?
Like a big name, like some of these aren't even that big of names.
Yeah,
like something this level.
Some of them are.
We got a couple of needle movers.
Yeah, I think those are all. I think every name that you had on your list that's a name that no one goes, okay. It's like, oh wow, they did for better or for worse in some fans' minds. Like those are all needle moving names, one way or the other that you listed. But do you think a trade of that sort happens?
I give it a 50-50 chance, which I wish I could say higher. I don't hate the idea of doing a smaller move now. Like I was looking at some other players like Wendell Carter Jr. I like that move. There's like a few other trades that I'll get to at some point in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
They're smaller moves, but I think would have some impact. And then seeing where you're at the trade deadline and having it be that when you do your big move, it could be where maybe that's too late and they really need something at the beginning of the season to give everyone time to gel. But knowing Monty and the way he's so patient and wanting to find what seems like the perfect move, it's hard to say. So 50-50.
Are you going to do a draft? Are you going to like go through names for the 13th pick?
No, I'm not doing
Coward. Coward. Boo.
I don't know enough about the draft prospects.
Dude, I'm with you.
And I don't want to do a disservice to people because I don't know. It would be mostly just me reading other people's work, which is good to learn about and everything. But I don't feel like I know enough about the prospects to give genuine analysis.
Yeah, we're going to attack this next week, and man, it's going to be a chore.
It is.
Yeah.
It's going to be so difficult because I feel like, again, we use this analogy with the Keegan draft. It's like it was, you were really zeroed in on like 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
You could have some fun and get to 6, 7, 8, but, we knew what was realistic and what wasn't. Like 50 guys we got to cover over the next 2
That's a
weeks.
lot.
I mean, that's a slight exaggeration, but there's a ton of players that man, it's tough. And I don't know how to evaluate, you could find guys that you like. Yeah, no, I saw him in the 13, 14, 15 range. All right, cool. Yeah, I looked at this other one and he was second.
Yep.
All right. Forget it.
So that's why I'll leave it to the experts.
Well,
but I love, this is one of my favorite parts of the offseason.
You are the expert. Do you have your article in front of you?
I do.
What is the first line of your marketing write-up?
Lori
Whoa.
Markkinen is. Oh God.
Okay. All right.
Whoa.
I love that Will.
Whoa.
I love that Will caught on right away. He was like, "All right, no."
It's like, yeah, it's right there. I can read it.
Yeah. What is it?
It's something that everyone will have to go read. No, I'll say
Okay,
it.
there it is.
It's my pipe dream. I'll say it.
Wow.
It's true.
Rich Jesse's working. That's why I didn't hear that.
No,
Is there
it's,
You
be a
got no
flag?
shame.
no,
Where's my
that's
flag? I got a flag.
that's no, it's
I got
there's one. It's right here.
Multiple flags on the
Oh man, they're all
all right.
they're all over the place.
flags all over the field.
I read that. I was like, yeah, we're gonna see if we can get Will to read that out loud on the air. And
Yep.
I love that Will knew right away. Yeah, I got you. Okay, all right.
It
Idiot.
was kind of
Remembered
just
what
in
show it
time,
was.
but sometimes
he-
you gotta have fun.
Yeah, he remembered what show this was. Well done.
Yeah.
Will, we missed you, buddy. It's great to have you back. Anytime you want to put pen to paper, so to speak, and come on here and talk about it, man, say the word.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Good to be back, guys. Thanks.